us this morning on Montana's news station. You're on Focus this Sunday morning, and we have an exciting program for you today. You want to sit back, grab that cup of coffee early this morning, and listen about what's called the Butte Storyteller Project. And we want to introduce a couple of individuals who are here to talk with us about that exciting endeavor this morning. Stephen Judd is with us, who is the acting chairman of the Butte Storyteller Project. Stephen is a Butte native, and we'll learn more about his Butte history in just a moment. Also joining us, we have John Driscoll this morning, who is the acting coordinator of this Butte Storyteller Project, which got its start just a couple of weeks ago, and actually has been in the works now for about a year. I want Stephen to tell us a little bit, tell us about your history, because you're actually, living in Peru?
Yes, Jay.
But you grew up in Butte, and this is where your roots are.
Right, Jay, I'm a product of Butte's East Side. I was born in South Arizona Street, was educated in Butte at Sacred Heart School, and then later on Butte Central, and then went to the University of Montana. And after a stint in the U.S. Air Force, I joined the Maryknoll Missionary Society, and I was ordained as a Maryknoll missionary priest. And I've been assigned to Peru off and on for the last 25 years. And that's where I take part in my missionary activity among the indigenous peoples of southern Peru. And like I said, I have been there for several years, but just returned last year after a 6-year job in the administration of our missionary society.
But you still get back to Butte frequently, you said almost on a yearly basis, and you just spent 6 months here on a sabbatical recently.
That's right, Jay. I've always tried to get back to Butte as much as possible. Some years I haven't been able to do that, but since I left Butte after graduating from the university in Missoula, I've looked for every opportunity to come back, and I'm still strongly identified with Butte and the Butte story and the Butte spirit and the Butte experience. For me, it was what has shaped me as an individual and as a Catholic priest all of these years.
Also joining us, John Driscoll this morning, who is the acting coordinator of the Butte Storyteller Project. John and I go back quite a ways to his years in the legislature as a legislator, a former Speaker of the House, Public Service Commissioner, but now you've moved back to Butte, where you were born originally. Tell us a little bit about your roots here, John.
Well, all of my families, all 4 sides, were here 5 generations ago. And I have to say, though, when people ask me where I was born, I just say yes, because I was in L.A. at the time. Mom and Dad were there for the war, but we came back and then left when I was just a kid after Dad got hurt in the mountain Kohn. And then my wife, Kathy, and I returned about 6 years ago. We live in Centerville, and we've been able, after I got out of politics, we've been able to really learn about Butte all over again. And it's just stimulating as can be.
Now, I want both of you to take your time to tell us about what's called the Butte Storyteller Project. And this is something I've just learned about in the past couple of days. And this is something that this community is just going to be so excited about. But Stephen, tell me how this whole thing came about. Where did this idea originate? Well,
the idea originated when I was back in Butte last year. In the winter, I attended a lecture up at the Butte Silver Bow Archives, and John was there at the lecture, and the lecture was by a young fellow originally from Butte, Bill Fisher, who was talking about St. Mary's Parish and the Irish resistance movement. He had been just completing his master's dissertation, or thesis, I should say, at MSU in Bozeman. And John and I had an opportunity to talk to each other and share a little bit of our individual journeys, how we were so much identified with Butte, even though we had gone to other places and we had been in other occupations and had traveled so much around the world, but yet we found ourselves attracted back to Butte and trying to see what constitutes the Butte identity and the Butte character. And especially in light of those of us who have been gone for so many years, but still feel this pull and this attraction back to Butte.
Like a big magnet that brings people back. Now, John, you said you didn't know Stephen when you were growing up, but your families knew each other.
Yeah, my grandmother, Ethel Driscoll Gordon, and Steve's mom were good buddies, and Dad, Charlie Judd, and they have the New Deal Bar. And she used to talk about going to the World Series and about how nice they were. They were really good friends. And so Steve and I found another reason to hit it off. But then I started learning about Steve and his life, and I I came to a real strong conclusion that we can't understand the Butte story until we know what the people who left have been doing with their lives. And then that will tell us what really formed people and what the effect of it was. And so I set out to maybe do a thumbnail sketch on all these people that are out in the world, and I ran it by Steve. I was thinking of doing it up at the Stewart Mine, because you can see all the old neighborhoods from there, and say this guy grew up here and he's doing thus and such. And Steve said, "Ah, heck, let's do it with real people." And so then came the idea of bringing people back to Butte and having them involved in the community. And so Steve and I, we began planning this. We began planning a planning meeting a year ago, and we've been communicating between Butte and Peru by email. And you can do that now. You can bring the whole community together with email.
Now, Stephen, tell me what your vision is for the Butte Storyteller Project, because there'll be a lot of viewers that may be hearing about it for the first time, and they want, you know, what was your terminology, John? It's a 5-cent word that everyone can understand, but give us what your vision is.
Okay, as best I can, Jay. I would focus on the word reclamation. Most of us in Butte now have a great deal of awareness about the need to reclaim the land here, especially after all of the years when the earth was subjected to so many ravages and plunder in the terms of so many people. So we have that built into us now. We want to reclaim Butte. But reclamation for us also means reclaiming our social and cultural roots as well, our ethnic identities, in order to look towards the future. The vision that we have for this project is more than nostalgia. It isn't just going back to the past and hoping that we can recreate the past. Rather, it's to build on the strong foundations of the past as we look towards the future. And we can't move towards the future unless we come to terms with the past and what it means, and achieve some kind of ownership of that. So that's why we constantly go back to the word reclamation. And it's social and cultural reclamation, religious reclamation. There's a spirituality in Butte. I suppose I move more in the area of religious language or theological language, but also sociological language as well. I'm familiar with that. And that has helped us to ground this project. I think the idea that we need to tell our stories, individual stories, in terms of the larger story that is Butte, the larger narrative, and it's a very rich history. And I think that's what gives the Butte character such strength to confront whatever challenges come to a person or come into our lives. There's something here that has helped us to build that character. And that's all a part of this vision and focus that we have in this project.
Now, John, one of the handouts you gave me said identifies the need to fill in the holes in the ground or the voids in Butte's history. What do you mean by that?
Well, we had a really intense several days of meetings and pre-meetings and post-meetings, but we found there's lots of contradictions in Butte's history, but we found lots of voids too. For example, you know, what was it like to be families that were running the company that everybody dislikes? You know, they have a point of view. It wasn't the company's point of view. They had to go to school here. Another one that's my favorite is we hear about the tough Butte miner, but my mother was a nurse at St. James, and she talks about what it was like to be around those men as they were dying, and she always told us that they were the kindest, most gentle and loving men she'd ever been around. So do we have a problem here of somebody else telling the story instead of ourselves telling the story? And other voids are the role of the women. You know, there were 2,158 men killed underground. That's not counting 150 men a year from silicosis. And those men left widows and they left children, and the widows had to raise the children, yet nobody is writing about that or talking about it. It's like they want to put it behind them because it was painful and nobody wants to talk about it, yet there's a tremendous story there about women and other facets of the women. And so, and we identified more to do with prohibition, prostitution, disease, not all bad, a lot of good, but what happens is it seems like people come and tell the same story over again, and it isn't the whole story by any stretch. And we want to create the opportunity for the people of Butte to tell their own story.